Live. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dale Danker, the president of TW Local 514 here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this is another session where we are going to try to cover in the maintenance-related book and in the MLS book, hours of service, if it goes fairly quick. I know we had scheduled to cover 14.1 rebid, 14.2 realignment, and 14.3 absent from duty at the later afternoon session. I might try to work my way through those articles. They're real short and allow for getting questions. Would I cover the RIF recall article? Was hoping we wouldn't have to worry about that anytime soon, but due to the coronavirus and what's happening in the economy and around the world, I've had some folks ask if we could cover that. And so I'm going to try to cover that in the afternoon session. So I'm going to state it again. If you'll subscribe, hit this red button. If you're watching YouTube, you have friends, ask them to subscribe to that channel. We get above 1,000, which shouldn't be hard, but apparently it's going to be. We could have more options to be able to use this modern type of communication. So please ask your friends to subscribe to that. They don't have to turn the notification on. If they'll just subscribe, YouTube people will be happy, and they'll give me and Al and our team a few more options to come to you. So MTS, MCT groups are going to be covered by Jack Moore for the MTS and Jason Best for the MCTs. In the room with me again, I have Kendall Anderson, Al Ball, Marla Johnson, Linda Deal. Everyone say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
There you go. All right. So we're going to get started on hours of service. Feel free to ask your questions. Al and the rest of the team here are monitoring them. If they think that we need to stop, they'll just stop me and we'll read the question. If not, we'll catch them at the end. Hours of service. In the M&R book, it's Article 14. It's Article 14 in all the books. It's page 89. The standard workday shift shall be 8 hours consecutive. Exclusive, not including, a half-hour unpaid meal period, consisting of 5 consecutive workdays, midnight Sunday to midnight Sunday, shall constitute a standard work week. The company will determine the available work schedules as appropriate for all bid areas. B, each employee will be scheduled for 2 days off during each work week. The company will make every reasonable effort to arrange work schedules so that whenever practicable, those days will be Saturday and Sunday. It's good to have that language, even though we have to fight them over it. When an employee's days off are other than Saturday and Sunday, they will be 2 consecutive days, or Sunday in one week and Monday in the following work week. C, all time worked in any continuous tour of duty, including overtime, will be considered as work performed on the workday within which the tour of duty is started. D, where the company or union propose the use of 10-hour shifts, such shifts may be implemented in any location or bid area within a location where the company and the union mutually agree. Where the 10-hour shifts are established or currently exist, the company or the union will have the right to cancel by providing written notice to the other party no less than 60 days prior to the next scheduled rebid, unless the parties mutually agree otherwise. Cancellation of 10-hour shifts by either party will be based on a review of flight schedules or workload. The cancellation of 10-hour shifts by either party will not be arbitrarily. E, where 4-day weeks are utilized. 10 consecutive hours exclusive of 1/2 hour unpaid meal period shall constitute a workday. 40 hours consisting of 4 10-hour consecutive days midnight Sunday to midnight Sunday shall constitute a work week. Nothing will prohibit the company from scheduling Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday as the 3 consecutive days off. All employees will be allowed a 5-minute cleaning up period at the end of each shift, which an employee can use for wash up and changing clothes. G, all employees who are not assigned to the line at terminals will be allowed a 15-minute rest period during the first half of their shift and a 15-minute rest period during the last half of their shift for the purpose of, catch this, smokers, dippers, and chewers, relaxation, comma, smoking, comma, etc. This was talked about in length. And I believe this is IM language, and I believe that they have a grievance that's not yet been settled. And so this language still exists. So I don't know if this is ratified. If you are in Tulsa and you run right out and light one up on your 15-minute break time, I'm pretty sure somebody will probably violate the rules of the camera pass and take a picture of you and send it off to the manager or the director to try to get you in trouble. So it's usually our own people that we have to watch out for, telling on each other. So if you're a smoker and you read that and you go, by God, and you run right out and do it, I would just ask if it's going to be allowed before I chose to light one up. H, employees who work the line at terminals will be allowed reasonable breaks as time will permit. They are not given a standard 15-minute before and after lunch break because there might be an airplane that's scheduled to fly in and they have to, bless you, Kendall, they have to work when the airplanes are there and try to take breaks when they're not. I, with 3 standard 8-hour shifts are employed, and it goes into the start times. We also covered this over in compensation on shift differentials. So starting times of the first shift will not be earlier than 6 or later than 8. The second shift will start no later than 30 minutes prior to the end of the first shift, and the third shift will start no earlier than 30 minutes prior to the end of the second shift. Start times for shifts greater than the standard shift or in locations where 3 standard shifts are not employed will be based on the requirements of the service in that location. Shift starting time shall be on the hour or quarter hour. In establishing additional shifts at line maintenance stations, it shall not operate to cause any reduction of force of any employee who is covered by this agreement. Regular starting and stop times for all shift and days off will be scheduled and posted at each station or facility and shall not be changed within 7 days' notice to any employee affected by such change. Where there are federal or state daylight savings laws, the hours may be changed to meet such laws. Adverse condition day. When a decision is made by the federal, state, or local government officials that prohibits an individual employee from reporting to work, i.e. travel ban, curfew, or state of emergency, the employee will notify the company as soon as practical, and the company will approve the options listed below. I'm not going to read all the options listed below. If we get to that point and you're curious as to what they all are, or you want to double check or fact check, they're on page 90. Now, I am going to cover this: airport or facility closure. With the coronavirus that's on, this is ratified. What would that mean to you? Airport or facility closure. So out here at the Tulsa base, we are a facility. We also have offsites. Employees will be notified by the company of the closure and shall receive a minimum of half of the regular scheduled hours pay at the regular hour rate, unless notified that there will be no work at the close of the last shift he worked, or 16 hours before the start of his regular work shift, whichever period is shorter. The employee at his option may use any other compensated time off, excluding, meaning not including, block vacation and sick to make up his wages. M says, as a result of severe weather / natural disaster, the company at its discretion may provide hotel rooms, meal vouchers, and transportation to and from the hotel to those employees necessary to maintain the operation. N, employees working a standard shift shall be granted an uninterrupted 30-minute unpaid meal period, except when a longer period is agreed upon by the parties, the company and the local union, to begin not earlier than 3 hours after the commencement of the scheduled shift and not in later than 5½ hours after the commencement of. Every reasonable effort will be made to allow all employees to take their meal period as scheduled. However, if the meal period is interrupted due to operational necessity, he will be paid an additional 30 minutes at the rate of time and 1/2, and the employee will then be rescheduled for an uninterrupted meal period beginning no later than 6½ hours after the commencement of the scheduled shift. O, employees working a scheduled shift longer than the standard shift. I'm not going to read it because it reads the same. The numbers are a little bit different, but if you're working longer than an 8-hour shift is what O is for. P, to the extent applicable laws require that an employee covered by this agreement be provided with different break and meal periods than are set forth in this agreement, and such law cannot be waived by the parties, an employee shall be entitled to this more generous break and meal period scheduled provided by applicable law or this agreement. So I guess that means in some states they allow them to take longer lunch periods. Q, employees who work in a location that changes to daylight saving time will, on the day in the shift the daylight saving time goes into effect, work their regular scheduled number of hours. Employees who work in a location that changes from daylight savings time will, on the date and shift that standard time goes into effect, be required to work 1 hour in addition to the regular scheduled workday, and will be compensated for the additional hour at the applicable overtime rate. If the company determines that less than a full crew is required during that last hour of the shift, it may offer employees the opportunity to leave early in occupation / classification seniority order. Number 1, employees working under the provisions of a shift swap will be allowed to work 17 hours on the day standard time goes into effect, the fallback piece of it. Skipping R, well, it's the crew chiefs may be told their start time is going to be 15 or 30 minutes prior to the normal shift standard start times. It's what we traditionally do here in Tulsa, but I believe there's other stations outside of Tulsa that they start right when their crew starts. S, paragraph S, all shifts and days off will be fixed and awarded based on seniority described in this agreement. T, the company determines the composition of scheduled bids, including the posting of a schedule for vacation relief purposes. U and V are talk about planner, dock specialist, quality assurance classifications. And the next page is just the finish of the quality assurance classifications, how they bid. I'm not going to cover those. Al, is there any questions yet?
No. Statements, no questions.
Okay. Any statements we need to hear about? Y'all looking at them? Y'all got them covered? The fun statements? Entertaining?
You want to hear them, Dale? We'll let you know about it.
Oh,
Frankie Feist is asking a question.
oh well.
Not related to this article.
I was reminding him that he's off topic. So.
Okay. I think, Linda, since rebid, realignments, and absence from duty are so short, we'll cover them in this book, and then we'll cover them in the MLS book.
Sure.
Apologize since my earlier videos, my nose is running. So excuse me for having to wipe my nose. We're going to go on to Article 14.1, rebid, page 94. A, local preference for all classifications will govern all changes to shift / days off / and work locations, S in parentheses, within the bid area. at all stations by respective classification seniority. Bid area work locations will be established by the company in consultation with the designated union representatives. Shift days off work location preference sheets will be maintained within each station and will be utilized for all changes of shift days off and work locations within the bid area. Preference sheets may be hard copy or bid through an electronic equivalent. B, preference sheets will be sorted by classification seniority. If not done electronically, each rebid, the employee must complete a preference sheet and provide a copy to their supervisor and the designated union representatives. The preference sheet must be date stamped and signed by both the employee and the supervisor. The preference sheet will be utilized for all rebids. The employee must retain a copy of the signed preference sheet for their record. Now, did I lose my pen? There it is. If you're following along, the preference sheet will be utilized for all rebids. Marla, Kendall, Linda. Do you think that's saying that after I turn one in, unless I turn another one in, that's the one that will be utilized?
Yes. Period.
That's what I think. The
I
preference
see what that
sheet, singular, will be used for all rebids, plural.
And if they decide they want to change something
They gotta do
before the
another
next
one.
bid,
Yeah,
they have to do a whole new one.
I think that's correct. C, a minimum of 14 days notice prior to the effective date of a rebid is required. This notice will be posted by the company with a copy to the union. The notice will contain the cutoff date for submitting any changes to the shift, days off, or work locations within the bid area, the start date of the selection process, comma, and the effective date of the rebid by classification. The new shift breakdown by work location within the bid area and days off will also be provided. The completed rebid must be posted at least 7 days prior to the effective date of the scheduled change with a copy to the union. D, rebids will occur during the months of January, May, and September. So I'm going to read that again. Rebids will occur during the month of January, May, and September. So what does that mean, Marla?
Every 4 months instead of every 3 months now.
Yep. That's a change. E, the cutoff for submitting updating preference sheets will not be before the first of the month. The effective start date of the rebid may not be later than the 15th of the month, unless otherwise mutually agreed by the designated local union rep and the company. F, the rebid will be completed by the company and the designated union rep. The process will be as follows. Crew chiefs will select first, followed by basic classifications, selecting their shift days off work locations within the bid area. So the discussions at the table that I was at, that I witnessed and heard, was clearly defined that the crew chiefs will go first, and then those employees can see if it's a crew chief they like. They can try to follow him if their seniority prevails. If it's a crew chief they don't like, they can try to get away from that person if their seniority prevails. But it's not to say, okay, the crew chief start, and then 5 minutes later, as the crew chief is actively bidding, that the AMTs or any other classification that has the crew chief and the basic classification, it's to get the crew chief started and finished. Then the basic classification can see where those crew chiefs are, and then they bid. G, upon return to regular duty, the employee will be assigned shift days off and work location within the bid area based upon his classification seniority. So if you go out and you're off work and you're coming back in to one of the 3 annual bids, you will come back in to an area placed with your classification seniority. So if you got a lot of time and you've been off work and you come back in on day shift, There's going to be people, they're going to be pissed off, they're going to be making phone calls. It's not fair. This guy come back in on day shift. G says, upon return to regular duty, the employee will be assigned a shift, day off, and work location within the bid area based on his classification seniority. So you don't have to get upset about it. There's the rule. He's not getting a deal. Then the employee will remain in that position until he's able to bid into another position via the rebid or posted opening based on his classification seniority. All right, next page. H, no employee will be allowed to bid for another employee. Dang it. I, to be eligible to participate in the rebid, an employee must have received notification of his scheduled report date to their new bid area prior to the beginning of the shift days off work location within the bid area selection process. J, employees may be assigned to multiple tasks and or assignments during the course of his shift at his station within his bid area. It is understood that all assignments will be made through the respective crew chief.
Okay. James Gardner had a question. He wanted to know if it was going to be a live bid. It's not going to be a live bid. It's pretty much going to be what we've had in the past, correct? Am I
Well, so
mistaken in that?
yeah, so did it talk about it being at the table? It talked about being a live bid as the line does it now, but I don't know that it got put down here in paper that how it would be. Got to go back and look, James. Let's see. Preference sheets will be sorted by classification seniority. If not done electronically, each rebid the employee must complete a preference sheet and provide a copy to their supervisor. I don't see anything that says live. Do you?
I didn't.
The preference sheet must be date stamped and signed. The preference sheet will be utilized. The employee must retain a copy.
In the way it's written, it's very similar to the process we do. now.
Right. Yeah, I don't see where it says it's live or static. Do what?
There's a sentence here in C that says the cutoff date for submitting any changes to the shift days within the bid area. That's in C.
Right, so it's reading like the way we did today.
Right. Yeah. Is there any other questions?
No, that was it.
Let's see. Where were we at? We did realignments. 14.2. 14.3 is absence from duty. An employee unable to report for duty will, unless prevented by reason beyond his control, notify his immediate supervisor or other central point set up for reporting purposes by the company as far in advance of the scheduled starting time of his shift as possible. Notwithstanding the above, an employee may flex the starting time up to 15 minutes without pay or penalty to the attendance record twice per calendar year. So that's our 2 Gilligans that we've had in our book for quite some time, and we was able to keep that. So if this gets ratified and you're running late or something of that nature, you get 2 15-minute graces, I guess is the best way to say it.
So Jimmy Gardner had a follow-up question.
Yep.
So he says, then the crew chief will be given our bid sheet, and after that happens, we will have a list posted of where the crew chief bids awards are. That way the people can bid to what crew chief area they want.
Yeah,
Is that how it works?
my goal, Jim, would be to do exactly what was talked about at the table. The company may have pushback on that because they want to use this archaic dinosaur let's do everything on paper and kill a million trees way of doing things. But if this base can't come around to doing something like what it was explained to me how they do it on the AATWU side of the line, then I will use my contacts through Gary Peterson to try to see if we can't bring that system utilized at the line here to the Tulsa base, because the way it was explained to me is that it was live, like you'd ask your first question, and they could go on the I don't know if it's an app on your phone or it's a program that they have on JetNet or how that system is brought to them so they can interface with it. But it sounded like a useful tool to me where the guys could see where people were going. Any other questions?
So far.
Okay. Let's see.
Not a lot of difference.
Not a lot of difference,
all.
Linda.
No, no, sir.
Hours of service in the MLS book is page 40. So let's just kind of buzz through it, everybody. It's got a book in front of you. Article 14, same article, different page number, hours of service for MLS. Paragraph A, it talks about the 8 hours, 5 days, half hour unpaid. That's the same. We'll try to give you Saturday and Sunday off. When they can't, it'll be 2 days in a row. Nothing will prohibit them from offering days off to be Sunday in 1 week and Monday in another week. So 410 language is the same. They can have it. Let's see. This is, I think I see a change here.
Number one.
In two, yeah, in one,
D1 Delta.
in two, you can cancel a 410, and in the other book, the M&R book, it says it cannot be arbitrarily canceled. That language is not in here. It's understood and agreed that either party will have the right to cancel a 410 schedule with 30-day notice to the other party, period. I wanted that in the M&R book.
60 days.
I wanted that in the M&R book, but was not able to achieve that in Chicago. That was a good day that I'll remember forever, where it seemed like some of my coworkers were okay with us continuing to have 410 shifts shoved on us here in Tulsa as long as they didn't get them shoved on them in other areas. That was a day I had to use up a few curse words and walk out. But yeah, in one, in the M&R says where 10-hour shifts are established or currently exist, the company or the union will have the right to cancel, providing written notice to the other no less than 60 days prior to the next scheduled rebid. And in the MLS book, that piece is gone. And then the number two, the cancellation of 10-hour shifts by either party will not be done arbitrarily.
Oh, wow.
That also is
Did
not
not realize that.
in the it's not in the MLS book, which is good. I mean, if they shove 410s on you and you don't want it, and I'm still your president, we'll just tell them that we're canceling them. And then they'll try to use the other book and say, but we screwed you back in Chicago and got this put in here, and your other guys agreed to it. Anyway, I could go on. All right. Where 4-day weeks are utilized. Talks about how to utilize a 4-day 40-hour work week. It talks about employees who are not assigned to the line, just like in the M&R book, you get a 15-minute rest period during the last half of their shift for the purpose of relaxation, smoking, and ETC, period, etc. I could think of some ETCs that I would like to go along with that, but probably would be inappropriate to discuss that here. H, employees who work the line at terminals will be allowed reasonable breaks as time will permit. We covered that. I talks about the start times of the 3 standard 8-hour shifts. That looks the same. 1 and 2, that looks the same. J talks about if the daylight saving time, that's the same. Adverse weather condition. When a decision is made by the government to shut your work area down, the options to what you can do to fill in that gap, that looks the same. Airport or facility closure, that looks the same as the M&R book.
Women and P and Q do as well.
So N and O talk about if you get your 30-minute unpaid lunch period interrupted, how that will pay you time and a half and reschedule. And the N is for the standard shift. O is for something longer than a standard shift. P is if you live in a state that allows you to have longer than the standard 30 minutes. That this agreement says that obviously you get the more generous of the two. Q, daylight savings time language is the same. Q1, if you're in a shift swap with the person and it falls on that day, you're allowed to work greater than 16. You can work 17 on that particular day of daylight savings time. R is the language of the crew chiefs. There's a little bit difference here where the M&R book it's a little bit different on the start time. It's still 15 minutes and 30 minutes, but I believe hang on, I'm reading this. I believe, and it would probably take Marla or Kendall sitting there with the other book, that in the M&R book, I believe it says at the top, employees in a crew chief classification may be scheduled to start their shifts 15 or 30 minutes or 15 minutes prior to the normal shift.
Correct.
And in the MLS, it's just 15.
Yep.
It does state that the company may continue to schedule crew chiefs 30 minutes before their crews at those TWU Association locations where the company is doing so as of November 17, 2016. So there's a little bit difference to those two. Yeah. All shifts and days off will be awarded based on seniority. The company determines the composition of the scheduled bids, including the posting of the schedule for vacation relief. And then U talks about material and AOG planners and their 12.5-hour work day and the things that go along with those differences. All right. 14.1. Any questions so far? Okay.
I know it may not be totally on this topic, but at Davy Jones, he said when will we start to using the new bid process?
I believe by talking with HR and talking with my fellow local presidents that let's see, what was the months that it would
January, May, and September.
that I believe it should be on an implementation date if ratified So they would have to look out at the dates that's listed. You said January, May, and September,
Yes.
and they would have to pick one of those months. So obviously it's not going to be January. It's going to be May if they think they can get it done. And if not, then I guess they would shoot for September. But in my mind, they would probably attempt to do it with our current system of giving you paper, having you turn it in. If they wanted to go electronic, maybe they could get it turned on, but it doesn't ever feel like that they're going to be prepared to do some of the things that are electronic. It's there's a lot of differences, I'm told, between our staff ad system and their work brain system. So maybe when the work brain system becomes live, that we could maybe be put on to do it electronically. But any other questions, Al? Good. Okay, so rebids. Let me go over rebids for MLS. That looks the same. It talks about local preferences for all classification will govern all shift days off work locations within the bid area at stations by respective classification seniority. Bid area work locations will be established by the company with consultation with the union reps. Shift days off work location, all that's the same. Preference sheets will be sorted by class seniority if not done electronically. Each rebid, the employee must complete a preference sheet and provide a copy to their supervisors and the designated union rep. The preference sheet must be date stamped and signed by both the employee and their supervisor. The preference sheet will be utilized for all rebids. Again, that's the same language where Linda and I discussed. It's sheet singular and rebids plural. Reads like turn one sheet in and that sheet shall stand until you turn another one in line with with C, below paragraph C, and it talks about the notice given by the company that they're going to be a rebid and when you have cutoff and when you have time to change it. And they can't change it without 7-day prior effect to the date of the schedule change without a copy to the union and without it being posted. D, again, there's your bids months. It's the same, January, May, and September, 4 months, not 3. E is the same. It'll preference sheets will not be the cutoff for submitting updated preference sheets will not be before the 1st of the month. The effective start date of the rebid may not be later than the 15th of the month.
Can I say something real
Yep.
quick? When you were talking up above about the copies must be given to their supervisor and designated union rep.
Yeah.
The reason some people have questioned why do they have to give have two of them, it's really for their safety and for us to be able to have their back if supervision was to lose it or say they did not get it and their union rep or themselves would have a copy.
Right.
For those that have been asking.
Okay.
Thank you.
F, rebid will be completed by the company and the designated union rep. Process will be as follows. Crew chiefs will select first, followed by basic class, selecting their shift days off work locations within the bid area. G, an employee's preference sheet will not be utilized to bid if he is not on payroll on the cutoff date for the shift selection. Upon return to duty, the employee will be assigned shift days off work location within the bid area based on his classification seniority. So don't be upset again if somebody comes in and you feel like they got a shift that you wanted. The employee will remain in that position until he's able to bid into another position via the rebid or posted opening based on his classification seniority. No employee can bid for another. To be eligible to participate in the rebid, an employee must have received notification of his scheduled report date. That's the same. J, employees may be assigned to multitasking or assignment during the course of his shift and station within his bid area. It's understood that all assignments will be made through the respective crew chief, and that's the same. Any questions, Al?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 14.2, let's call it realignments. In addition to the 3 fixed rebids per calendar year as described in 14.1, the company may utilize a realignment in each bid area one time per calendar year. In addition, realignment above the one per bid area per calendar year must be mutually agreed to by the designated union rep in the company. The realignment may occur when there is no change in total staffing levels in a bid area station. I didn't think I read that wrong. The realignment may occur when there is no change in total staffing levels in a bid area by classification. But there is a change in shift staffing level or start times. The realignment will be accomplished in the same manner as outlined in the rebid process. So the realignment may occur when there is no change in staffing levels in a bid area by classification. But there is a change in shift staffing level or start times. The realignment will be accomplished in the same manner as outlined in the rebid process. Questions? 14.3 is called Article 14.3 is absence from duty. An employee unable to report for duty will, unless prevented by reason beyond his control, notify his immediate supervisor or central point set up for reporting purposes by the company as far in advance of scheduled starting time of the shift as possible. Notwithstanding the above, an employee may flex their start time up to 15 minutes without pay or penalty to the attendance record twice per year. That's our 15-minute. Oops. Okay. Any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, so this is from David Jones. It says, so when I come back to work, I could be on any shift on any dock. Yeah, that's a great idea.
If you don't fill out your bid sheet, you will. If you fill out,
Read it again.
David Jones says, so when I come back to work, I could be on any shift on any dock.
How would he come back to work today, guys?
same way. You have to fill out your bid sheet. Your bid sheet, that's what we're talking about. You have to fill out your bid sheet and clarify what bid you want to be on, what shift, and that's what you're going to be on. What do you mean, David, if you're off of work with a short-term disability, or could you clarify that?
Would it be any leave of absence based?
Leave of absence, that's good.
Let me not just open my mouth. Dave's in M&R, correct?
Mhm.
G, page 94, rebid. Upon return to duty, the employee will be assigned a shift, days off, and work locations within the bid area based on his classification seniority. The employee will remain in that position until he's able to bid into another position via the rebid or posted opening based on his classification seniority. So I would have to say that I'll use myself as an example. I'm a guy that somehow, before I went out on a leave of absence, I always was able to hold on to day shift, Saturday, Sunday off. I was out, work changed, people that had realignments, rebids, work moved in, moved out, and I get ready to come back to work. And I've been a day shift, Saturday, Sunday guy for 10 years. But my bid location, which I'm going to return to work in, the landscape has changed, and now my seniority of 10-5-87, there's nobody on day shift with the seniority less than mine. So in essence, if I'd have been there to bid for that, I wouldn't have been able to hold it. Correct? Everybody in this room agree? So second shift, third shift, different sets of days off, I'm going to be placed into an area where my seniority would have held me had I been there. That's the best way I can explain it. Other questions? Okay. So, I think we will sign off, and I will briefly get myself up to speed on RIF and recall article. I think Al might go in and make the change to the schedule and make the headings appear right, but I've been asked if I would cover that. Article 12, reduction in force, recall, and voluntary separation. So if there's no other questions, thank you guys for tuning in. Ask your friends to subscribe to that YouTube channel up there and make life easier for us to be able to use this form of communication for you. You all have a wonderful day. Thank you.